Well, we at that time of the year when we look at what we call the hard work coming to light, and I think it's time we talk carnival. Carnival, what takes place in carnival, how carnival come to be, how the directors and the managers put carnival together, what goes into carnival, and some of the decisions that are being made. Sometimes we sit back and as John public, we criticize things that we see and things that we hear, and it's never an easy task for anybody to manage big events and events of a size like this. Notting Hill Carnival is Europe's largest street festival and representation of Caribbean culture. And I think it's important that we understand as the patrons what goes on in Carnival. Hence the reason today we would be speaking with the CEO of the Notting Hill Carnival Association, Mr. Matthew Phillip, and we would want to welcome him to Straight Talk. It is open, uncensored. Matthew Phillips, right here on Straight Talk with yours truly, Sugar K. It's with great pleasure I take the opportunity to welcome the CEO of Notting Hill Carnival. Welcome to Straight Talk, sir.
Thank you.
On the intro, we looked at the fact that Carnival here in London, in England here, is the Europe biggest street festival.
Yeah.
And for the average citizen who comes to Carnival, or the patrons who come and partake in Carnival, do not understand how Carnival actually come on the road for bank holiday, Sunday and Monday.
Right.
And as it is, looking in, we see stewards, we see policing, we see streets block off, we see signs prior to Carnival going up with restrictions. Matthew, there's a lot of misconception about Carnival, and we just need to put it to rest once and for all.
Okay.
There are sanctions taking place. People have their opinion and they don't know how that take place. We know there are situations where you're trying to tailor Carnival in a specific direction, i.e. we're looking at the eco side of Carnival. We're also looking at getting more children involved in Carnival. And for that, the committee has to make some decision that is not necessarily palatable to everybody, and you cannot please everybody. So the question is, Matthew, how difficult it is to actually manage an event and put on an event like Notting Hill Carnival?
Well, it's very challenging. First and foremost, Carnival is really about freedom and expression of our culture. But at the same time, we have to bear in mind the safety of people that come to the event, as well as people within bands and audiences at sound systems. So we have to make sure that we do things to keep people safe. You know, things that we put in place. You mentioned bands that have been sanctioned. We all have a duty of care to not just our masqueraders or people in the band, but the public. Music is a very powerful thing, and to a certain extent you can control crowd behaviour by the certain music that you play. Now there's a music policy that's been in place for probably well over 12 years. It wasn't being enforced.
Okay.
So there's two folds to it. It's the safety, and we feel that by keeping the route strictly to soca and calypso, we're also preserving that part of the culture. There's many other musics that people would like to play on the road, but if we're honest about it, a lot of that music has spaces in a lot of other events, but there aren't many avenues or spaces, particularly for soca and calypso. Some of the bands that were sanctioned were playing music that you wouldn't normally hear. You know, it's not associated with the Caribbean tradition of carnival that we're trying to promote and protect. And the effect of that and the people that it draws around those floats has an adverse effect on public safety.
Also, I mean, so the sanction is basically looking at public safety and the music that incites a specific behavior, or there's an assumption that it incites a certain behavior by people, and this is no fault of the actual DJs or whoever playing the music. It's just people reaction to that
People's
specific
reaction,
music?
you know, we have a lot of static sound system sites within Carnival, and a static site is more easy
To control.
It's easy to control. If you think of a mass band or a truck that's playing music, it's almost like you have a venue to control, but that venue is constantly changing as you go around the route. And it isn't possible to kind of keep crowds away, you know, with barriers and things, because those barriers themselves present safety risks and implications around them.
Being devil advocate, since we jumped off on that, what some people would say, or what some of the whispers would be, Carnival is about Caribbean culture, and the music genre of the Caribbean is reflected in so many different ways, because you specifically mentioned Calypso and SOA, and one thing I would want people to take away from here is that although you say Calypso and SOA, that includes Dennery and Zouk, that falls under that umbrella.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So the one music that will possibly, or one set of music that will possibly be excluded from the route, and when you're talking about the route that the masqueraders go on and the trucks travel around the road, would be hip hop, soul, and bashment.
That music has a place in Carnival.
It has a place.
You know,
there is a place for that.
We have 36 static sound system sites which are very well managed by the sound operators and can cope with that.
Yeah.
You know, what we've seen in recent years is when some of that music's played, it causes rushes around the route.
Okay.
You know, and people are gravitating to those floats. At the end of the day, the parade and the passes are given to mass bands, steel bands and Brazilian bands. And the mass bands are promoting mass, their costumes, and what goes along with that is soca and calypso and some of the other musics that you just described.
Okay, so anybody who's coming into Carnival to play music must stay within the genre of calypso, soca, that kind of Zouk, Dennery.
Not Carnival, because Carnival is not just the parade. Carnival is, we've got 2 stages, we've got 36 sound system sites. So, you know, it's very much more open, but particularly around the parade, we're focusing on that type of music because it creates a different dynamic within the crowd.
Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but what is the percentage of other music that could be played? Since you
Zero.
So you say there's a zero.
We've been quite clear in that.
Also, that has changed because I believe
there was some ambiguity in the terms and conditions previously. But through the meetings that we've had with bands, etc., that's now been closed, and it's very specific what can be played.
Zero. I mean, that's good to know, and I'm sure a lot of people, you know, who would tune into this interview would be happy to know that. Matthew, that's one side. Put another side. What are the difficulties the organization is facing in regards to, because we know throughout the years, Carnival has come up against a lot of challenges because of residents and all that kind of thing. Where we are with that now?
Those challenges have always been there, and they probably always will be there. What we rely on is cooperation amongst carnivalists, i.e. the bands and sound systems, to work with us, so that we can make sure that we're doing the best that we can to keep people safe and preserve the event. You know, there's, you know, particularly in this current climate, there's a lot of far right activity, and you know, some people don't want Carnival to happen. So we have to make sure that we act responsibly and promote the event and activate it in the safest possible way that we can.
All right, let me take this opportunity to say you has been a breath of fresh air, and for a specific institution who I know has been struggling for a number of years, Panorama. That has certainly had a major direction turn, in the sense that Panorama is now an event that is a paid event, and which I personally think it should have been for a number of years. And I must say congratulations on that, and that is a good look. How that is evolving.
When we first brought that in, there was a lot of challenges saying that, you know, Panorama was always free. It wasn't always free. You know, I started playing in Panorama when I was 14 years old. It was always a paid event. It ended up as a free event because of the location that was available for the event to happen. And you know, we're still in that same location, but we
Yeah.
just figured out a way that we could bring the event into the park.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it could be a paid event. You know, the band spend tens of thousands of pounds preparing to come
Yeah.
in to Panorama. So the fees that we take, the ticket money, is all divided equally amongst the participating bands. And I have to say,
Okay.
it barely scratches the surface.
Okay,
for
so
them.
what you're saying, when someone pay to go in Panorama, which is a small donation of, I think it's £20,
£20.
that money is shared equally between the performing band or all bands within
between the bands that are participating
participating
in Panorama.
in
Because
yeah.
a band participating in Panorama has like 100 players. It's a much bigger it's a much bigger thing to put on than you know, on the road. Still, bands may have 25, maybe 30 players, but the logistics of putting together a 100-piece band, getting the instruments tuned, finding somewhere to rehearse.
So we are actually helping to support and keep some form of longevity to this band when we pay to go to Panorama.
Exactly.
We're not putting money in to your pocket.
Not
to
at
your
all.
pocket.
Not at all. And in fact, it doesn't even go into the infrastructure of the event. You know, we have partners that work with us. So this year we're partnering with Red Bull for the Horniman stage on Sunday, and an organisation called Strawberries and Cream.
Okay.
They have paid the money for the infrastructure for the event, which means the infrastructure is not just there for the Sunday and Monday, it's there for the Saturday in order for us to facilitate Panorama.
Oh, so they allow you to use those facilities for what you have to put on?
Well, I would put it that we allow them to use our facilities. It's our carnival.
Okay. You talk about sponsorship, you talk about cookies and cream, and you talk about Red Bull. For a number of years, Carnival have had major sponsor. What is keeping us back from having the same form of sponsorship taking place in Carnival at this point? Because it has to be a costly thing to put on Carnival.
It is, and we do get a level of sponsorship. I don't think Carnival's ever had the sponsorship that it deserves. Certainly when I started doing this in 2018, you know, me and my team were quite clear that we had to really focus on changing the media narrative and how people speak and talk about Carnival. Now, if you look at Carnival 2017 and the years prior to that, if you Google news clips, etc., you'd struggle to find anything positive.
Yeah.
So we really focused from 2018 onwards in putting out positive stories of what Carnival is about and the people that are involved in it. And for the first couple of years, we started to see a significant change. In fact, in 2019, the Huffington Post and other news outlets actually started responding to that and challenging some of the media narrative that was out there about Carnival, which is false. It's very unhelpful in terms of moving forward.
Well, it's strange that you say that, because one of the things I have always thought, hearing that bad press, is why Carnival of itself don't have its own media. When I say its media, I know it has a social website like Instagram and a YouTube page and that kind of thing, but in the sense of broadcast during Carnival time, because it's almost dormant to a point to say we're not hearing much. So if I am not of the community, what information is reaching me? Because mainstream media is, as you just say, they're about putting out what is not palatable to us.
Yeah,
so if the slightest thing happen, we get the biggest coverage. But what's happening today?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a PR and comms team, and I can, you know, after this Carnival, I'll be happy to share it with you. We have between kind of July, when we do the press launch, which is normally about the middle of July, and Carnival, you know, our report sometimes is over 500 pages in terms of the amount of newspaper articles that we've had put out there, news items on local news channels as well as mainstream. And I'd say in the last couple of years, 90% of that has been positive. There was an incident, Carnival 2022, which kind of made us kind of almost have to take a step back and, you know, readdress and carry on moving forward. But we're definitely heading in the right direction, and there's a lot of coverage out there, both over the weekend and prior.
Well, I think the direction I was going with it more so, you have your PR team, that all of that's fine. I'm thinking even to say, well, during the period of Carnival, we have a radio station. even if we have a visual process, because I know you. When I look on the website and see the involvements of the different disciplines, I mean, you have the Caribbean Music Association, you have all these different organizations, you have the Static Song Association.
I think there's a great opportunity, and if if only we could get everybody to pull together, because if we had everybody involved in it, but the problem is that some people want to dominate it, and there's a lot within the carnival community. I think there's sometimes some old arguments that people bear grudges, and I think it's a shame that we can't just drop that. For instance, we tried to do it a couple of years ago. I'll give you an example. The Access All Areas that we did when there was no carnival. We were saying, if we just pooled all of our audiences and get everybody to share in this broadcast, we can reach much wider. But some people didn't think that, because if you think about the amount we had to get through, we broadcast 3 channels simultaneously, but it still only meant that each band or sound system would have gotten like 20 minutes or 25 minutes of airtime. Some chose to do their own broadcast. But that ended up to much smaller audiences. When the broadcast that we did over that weekend reached 7.5 million listeners and watchers on YouTube. And if I think ultimately, as much as we've got big bands, small bands, but ultimately nothing is bigger than when we come together and as Notting Hill Carnival over that weekend. And if we could get everybody to be a part of that, the audiences would be, it's almost like sharing audiences. Someone's got a following, people would go onto that, and but sometimes people, it's like, I want to do this, and if I can't be dominant in it, I won't be involved in it. There isn't that collective working.
Well, I strongly believe that is something that should be revisited, because why I say that, because you obviously know, you've granted me this interview, and you know some of the skill set. I think that as someone who been coming to Carnival for a number of years and who understand the community very, very well, I think that personally, where Carnival, the body like yourself who control Carnival, we need to sit down with content creators, we need to sit down. I mean, there is so much people doing photography, but people doing different aspects, and we should be bringing them and getting them more involved.
Exactly, but if everyone would come together, I would jump at the chance, but everybody coming together includes the 125, which includes mass bands, Brazilian bands, steel bands, and sound systems. It needs us all to come together. It can't just be a section or a few of those.
So, I mean, would you say it's open to you putting on something like that again?
I'm always open to those conversations. We've tried over the past 5 or 6 years. There's been various attempts at that, but I'm happy to always,
to facilitate something,
see who will
because
come to the
I
table.
think we can use that, because we have so much people. I mean, doing photos, doing different aspects that. Of what we would need as a community to get the message out there, and we could have a holistic discussion about that. Matthew, your skill set is not only just about managing this, you also manage a band which is Mangrove Steel Orchestra, which you started off playing. You have inherited that band through your dad. How is the challenges of managing the boat, having to manage a full-size band side and still find time to, you have to work with,
Nothing that I do is just me. The same thing goes for Carnival. It's the same thing with Mangrove. There's a team, and we share responsibilities and work towards a common goal, which is why Mangrove was started up in the first place. That common goal was my dad and others from the community, Frank Critchlow in particular, that wanted to make sure that us, the next generation, continued the traditions that they'd left behind in Trinidad. So it's never just one person. There's a team of people. We've got our mass band. We have various elements of that. Since we started, we've had a youth element to the mass, as well as adults. And same with the steel band, and that has continued to grow because it's not just one person. it's a community. It changes and flows. I think there's probably 10 or 12 key people that are key to Mangrove Steel Band getting on the road. Excuse me. And the same with the mass band. You know, it's a collective.
So
effort.
everybody has their own little sector that they control. What is your vision for Carnival? What is your vision? Because ultimately, coming into this job, you must have seen what has been going on for a number of years, and you would have felt that it didn't suit your vision or what you think the Carnival should be. Because
honestly, it's not about my vision. You know, I think my job is to try.
But you're leading. You're leading. You have to take it somewhere.
Yeah, but it's not my job to promote my personal vision. It's my job to listen to all of the sound systems, all of the mass bands, the steel bands, all of the leaders of Carnival, and find a middle ground. You know, not everybody's going to be happy with decisions. But I truly believe that the actions that myself and the team take and the board is really about a balance between everyone's views, and really ultimately it's about protecting the event.
Now I'm going to tell you why I ask you what's your vision for Carnival. There has been a lot of nattering, as normally goes on in our community, and for whatever reason, I don't know, where some decisions were taken in regards to numbers in band. Also, the look and feel of bands. And when I say the look and feel and numbers, we were talking about there is a belief that some bands are extremely too large. And then the look of the band did not represent Carnival as the team, Notting Hill Carnival company, sees it what it wants to promote. And hence the reason there was discussion about T-shirts. There was discussion about kids, giving more kids an opportunity to play mass, also reducing the numbers of T-shirts, because you all feel that it was sort of swallowing up the artistic side of Carnival. What, explain to us.
There was an increase to 50 from 30 in the minimum amount of costumes. You know, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. You know, we can't have 45-foot trucks on the road with 10 or 12 costumes behind.
Stick up in a second, specifically about Sunday, because I know there is where the problem, where the T-shirts and that thing takes place.
That's because I think there's, and I understand both sides. You know, you know, some people use the sale of T-shirts to help support in the thing, but what that did, it was swallowing up. Now, it's never been the case that there's been no children's masks on the road at Carnival. But they became increasingly drowned out by the amount of adults. Now, as, you know, the way the board sees it, and you know, the adults have Monday, and if we don't protect that space and get young people involved in playing mass, in 10 or 15 years, there won't be any adults playing mass, because they won't have learnt that side of the culture. So we want to allow them the space, you know, wherever possible. It's not about removing any bands, but if and when it comes to the point where there's more and more children's bands, they will always be the priority. Sunday's not just children's band. We also have 10 Dutty mass bands. We have steel bands. We have Brazilian bands. But Sunday, you know, if we go back to when Carnival started, there was two main driving forces behind it. One, it was for children. It started with Ronnie Laslett's free school and her deciding to have a street fair for two things. One was for children. You know, if you look at those early pictures, it was all children, with the exception of you know, Sterling Betancourt, Russ Henderson, and others who were there playing pan. It was about children, and the second part of that, which is still as relevant today as it was about bringing people from different communities together to highlight what we have in common rather than our differences.
The thing with the part of the argument is transition, and the word transition means from the way people are discussing it, because I've had conversation with band leaders and various people, is that in order to get people into costume, you first need to wean them. And the bands, like you say, use T-shirt as part of raising funds, but it also uses that to get people involved.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, no scientific research has done to prove near or yeah, is that once they get into a t-shirt, the next phase, they will give them the confidence to go into costume. What you has just said to me is that you have reduced the costume ratio from 50 to 30.
No, we've increased
it
So
from 30
in order to be
50.
a band at Carnival, you
Yeah.
need to have 50 costumes.
And is that specifically for Sunday? Because as I said
That's
to you,
for both days.
For both days.
For both days,
So you're saying that, yeah. But do you see the argument where they're saying that, you know, if we get them in t-shirts, we would get them interested?
There was a few years, if you look at the, you know, probably up until the last couple of years, t-shirts were drowning out masks. It was just difficult to see masks at Carnival. And
Okay.
how do we preserve that and make sure, you know, because there's, you know, you can make money off of t-shirts. You can't make money off of masks. Well, some can, but it's very hard. It's done for the love and the art of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So if we just allow t-shirts to be sold, we would just end up with a
Okay,
street
so
full
that
of
is the
t-shirts.
reason behind that. Or I could understand the argument, and I think by you explaining that, a lot of people could understand that. So the thing is that the rules apply to both days. Have you ever thought about, or I want to say you, I mean the committee ever thought about restructuring it to say, well, look, if we have kids band, can we get them as to present Carnival Sunday as the first order on the road? Because I know you have bands going out at various intervals and at different times.
No, we try and encourage bands. Well, everyone has to be in the footprint.
In the footprint,
by
yeah.
8:30. We encourage bands to leave as soon as possible, ideally at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, but what I'm looking at
challenging.
is the children mass being drowned out by the adult. And I'm thinking, if you're presenting to the world, because I know you do stream Carnival, you would want to not necessarily have kids somewhere stuck somewhere 8 o'clock in the back of some band because they have...
We don't.
Yeah.
So basically, the Dutty Mask bands, for instance, wait until all the children's bands are on the road.
Okay, so it's in place before the parade, right? So that is taken care of.
So those are the biggest bands on the 2 days of Carnival, and they come along behind the children's mask bands.
What are the plans as far as the eco aspect of Carnival? Lorries, 45-foot lorries, burning diesel. What are the plans?
For a number of years, we've been working on things in terms of electric vehicles and things like that. With Mangrove, for instance, I trialled last year running the sound system off of battery packs, which worked, and we'll be doing that again this year. So the sound on the float is run out of battery packs.
Okay.
In terms of vehicles, we've actually developed a vehicle, but the challenge is getting it road legal. We use our small float at Glastonbury that we've been doing for the past 3 years, but we can use that there because it's on private land. The challenge is because it's classed as an amateur-built vehicle.
Oh,
getting it to
get
the
it approved.
standards that's
Get it
need
approved,
to be
yeah.
on the roads where the road traffic laws apply is very challenging. And if you think motor manufacturing companies spend millions developing, testing, and proving that, so that's something that we've been working on. We'll continue to work on because it definitely is the future.
but when you talk about the battery powered, what kind of system you actually running at? Because we know that these trucks on the road are running some what you call 30k rigs, 20k rigs, 15k rigs. Are you able to power that on battery?
Absolutely, and I invite you to look for the band Carnival and you'll see it.
So, I mean, and how long you intend to trial that for? Because obviously that is something that the committee would want to probably get in place to obviously reduce our carbon footprint as far as...
Absolutely. What I will say is Carnival happening in itself is reducing the carbon footprint of this area because probably as we speak, which is a normal Wednesday afternoon, there's probably 10 times the amount of diesel vehicles in that footprint moving around as we speak.
Right, I understand that.
On the event of Carnival,
well, that seems to take place.
Intense on the parade,
Yeah.
that's not happening. There's probably 100 vehicles as opposed to well over 1,000. There's probably 200 buses in this area at the moment.
Okay, but I think the buses are eco-friendly now, isn't it?
Some of them.
Some of them are
very
not.
few. Not all of them. We haven't quite get there. And if big companies like that are taking time, it's going to, as a community organisation, it's going to take a while for us to get to that stage. I mean, ideally, you know, as an organisation, we would be providing the eco vehicles to all of the bands to aid them, including and power for all of the sound systems.
Under your remit, you have mass, you have pan, you also have what we will call the ABC Calypso 10. What is happening, because that has been less and less over the years? What is happening in regards to what is it?
This year we were approached by a number of the artists directly to help and support them to make sure something happened this year. So we've done two shows here at the Tabernacle on the 3rd and the 10th of August, and there'll be another one here, which are their free events on the 22nd of August, showcasing local soca and calypso artists, and again there'll be a soca event on the 23rd, and today is the first of our 4 nights at the Opera Holland Park, and the final one is on Saturday, which is UK Calypso and SOA.
Which is beautiful. Well, there we goes again, because I didn't even know there was a Calypso taking on, and we talk about getting the message out.
Yeah,
and hence the reason we have to...
It is on our channel, so that's part of that's not a Notting Hill Carnival event. Those events are Carnival Village Trust.
Okay.
And those are all on our social channels, and we get it out as far as we can. But we also rely on the participants, you know, similar to what we were talking about earlier about the radio and the broadcast.
Yeah.
You know, when we do these events, it's for us to promote it, but also all of the participants.
To promote it,
that collectiveness is how we can get the message far and wide. So each show, so tonight's show has two soca artists and 3 steel bands, you know, them supporting and pushing it out as well. You know, tomorrow we've got 8 Brazilian bands. Friday we've got, I think it's 8 individual pan jazz players. And on Saturday there's 9 Calypso and soca artists. So that collective, you know, community-based promotion is the only way we can do it without spending lots and lots of money on promotion, which isn't there. You know, we put as much of our funding into paying the performers for those shows as we can.
You say money is not there. You've done a fantastic job, and I commend you on that, and I will not take it back. I will not make apology for saying that where Panorama is concerned. Why haven't we bleached the judging area? Why haven't we set up an even if it's a minimum entrance fee, and make that a spectator zone?
Because space is limited at the judging zone, and really the priority for that is providing space and seats for seniors from our community that have actually paved the way and are why Carnival happens now. You know, that's a space for them to come and enjoy Carnival, you know, that they help to promote. There isn't, it's challenges getting the space that we have on that judging zone, and there isn't the space to put, you know, hundreds and hundreds of seats there that we could charge for. So we have a limited space, and we have to have judges there. I think we have 240 seats there, and even then we aren't able to offer seats to all of those that would.
But how do you acquire those seats? How does someone acquire those seats? And
by writing into our office. Every year we get applications, and wherever possible, you know, most of those seniors are very well connected to the Carnival community, so they will come in here.
So you have to be connected.
Well, you have to, yeah, connected is how, you know, they haven't come from nowhere. They're connected.
They're involved in the community,
and they might have been doing what I'm doing 10 or 20 years ago
before,
on the peripherals.
Yeah.
So they're very much connected, and that's where that space is for. It's not just for anybody.
And that is something you will have to do early in the year, obviously, to be able to acquire.
Absolutely.
And with this, is the same for Panorama? Do you have special guests
Panorama,
or senior or the old, what we will call, I don't want to call it the old timers, and please forgive me for that, but the veterans who were in.
Very much so. The pan pioneers and veterans have space. Again, it's limited. We have, I think it's 88 seats there. We have 2 seating banks at Panorama, and those 88 seats are a mixture of, there's a few that's laid out for sponsors and people that support the event, but the vast majority is for pan pioneers and veterans of the
Well,
UK pan community.
this one could be very sticky, Matthew. You say pan pioneers and veterans. I had an interview with Michael, the world's only blind panist, who feel, in a conversation, and people can go back to the YouTube channel Straight Talk and look at that, feel that he has not been appreciated. And you just make a statement in saying that you have provision for these people.
Yeah.
It would be ill of me not to ask the question, why someone like that when we have that person here and has been involved in pan
Yeah,
for
but
many years?
again, it's a community collective effort. You know, I know Michael. I know of him.
Yeah.
You know, he's been involved with a couple of bands, and they are members of the Steel Band Association. There is ways to come and make sure. We can't reach out to everybody, but we rely on those band leaders and people that people have been involved in to approach us. Or, for instance, if he'd approached us, it wouldn't be a problem. But we can't just go out to everybody.
Well,
Michael is
but my understanding, if you reserve that for, and this is not me being argumentative here, you reserve it for people of such status. And we here in Britain, and you as a member of BAS, knows of someone like Michael, a talented, he teaches in school, he's the only blind man. We fortunately have him around us. Why he has to reach out, and why should we not be approaching him to say, Michael?
We can't reach out to everyone, because all due respect to Michael, I could probably name 300 people that are just as deserving from the pan community. You know, we do what we can. You know, resources are limited, space is limited, and we do what we can. That's all I can say on that. We don't exclude anyone purposely, but. If people have complaints, reach out to us,
Okay, or somebody could advocate on that person's behalf as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So you will take recommendations. So somebody could write in and say, we do think that this person should be allowed or be given the opportunity this year to be honored, or whatever the case is, to be at that
but
area.
There are, there are hundreds, there's so many people, we've got people in our community that are why this is happening, For instance, Leslie Palmer,
who's been around for...
As far as I'm concerned, Leslie shouldn't be able to walk through Carnival without being mobbed and thanked by
He
people.
was Carnival to some extent,
He gave the blueprint for what is the Carnival as it is now, in terms of, people don't realise that prior to 1973, any kind of idea of costume was more fancy dress. It wasn't mass as such. I've had people saying that sound systems came in and changed the dynamic at Carnival, but static sound systems
helped Carnival,
but they came at the same year.
But they helped Carnival.
I think a lot of people sometimes in the mass community think they came after. Both of those elements came the same year, 1973, and the third element that he added, in addition to pan and stuff, was street trading and food stalls, which is another essential element to Carnival. Carnival's multi-sensory. When people come to Carnival, the atmosphere is given not just by the music and costume, but the food that you smell as you enter the footprint.
Some people say that, I think Carnival is kind of outgrown the area. And we know that comes from more or less so the residents. I have seen the structure of Carnival, and I think it's fantastic, and I don't think it outgrows. How do you answer those criticisms?
It hasn't outgrown it. What we've seen is, I don't think there's any evidence that more people have come to Carnival in the last 20 years. We certainly saw different in the way people were behaving post-COVID. We do a lot of work around crowd dynamics and crowding, because it's obviously a concern. We have a dedicated crowd monitoring cell in our event control room over the weekend, and we are monitoring, and what we've seen is, yes, there are places that get densely crowded, but equally there's always space around. Oddly enough, I think the streets of Notting Hill, they give us an opportunity to help manage crowds. But again, it comes back to this collective support and management of the event, it's important for people. The microphone is one of the most powerful things in Carnival.
Well, yeah.
So, you know, we rely on support and input from the people on the stages, the sound systems and the trucks. If they see particularly a crowding around their floats, there's an opportunity to turn the music off and give some reassurance messages and let things calm down a bit.
Yeah.
But what we have, and this goes back to why, you know, some of the sanctioned bands were sanctioned, is DJs see that as an opportunity to have this mad moment that they can show on social media. Look what I did at Notting Hill Carnival. It's all fun and games to them. But ultimately, the band leader is responsible for that, because they've incited, or you know, they've kind of hyped up the crowd to such a level where it's uncontrollable. You know, it's really irresponsible. You know, if those situations where there were really dense crowds around the parading floats, that, you know, we all have a duty of care. So it's about watching, being vigilant, and you know, a crowd, when you're down in the crowd, is very different to when you're up and you're looking down. Yeah. So we feel it's important for those with the bird's eye view and the microphone to offer reassurance. It's similar to if you're stuck on a tube and it gets stuck in a tunnel. Your experience of that delay is very much, if there's no communications coming to you, it's very frustrating. But if you're being told what's happening, why you're delayed there, the fact that this delay is going to be over soon. Similarly at Carnival, if you're in a dense crowd and you know you can't move, but you've got someone on the mic who stopped the music so that the crowd is not moving uncontrollably and saying, look, let's ease up.
Calm down.
There's space in front, there's space to the left, or wherever the space is, and aid in that crowd management. It really is a collective effort.
Who ultimately controls Carnival Sunday and Monday on the road? Who ultimately is in charge and in control?
There's a multitude of agencies that support things. If you're talking about medical and things like that, we are very much led and supported by the NHS, St John's Ambulance and the London Ambulance Service. When it comes to crime and disorder, the police control that. There's various things that different agencies take on. Carnival is it's not run by one organisation or one person. It takes a collective effort, and that effort is gargantuan. It's difficult to describe the planning and the amount of people that are involved in managing and putting on the event. It's a collective effort because there's so many different things. One, ultimately, we operate for the most part on public roads. So you have local authority input and they have a responsibility for certain things. We've got the police, we have stewards that we put in place to do certain things, but their powers are very different to what the powers of the police have. So it's really a collective effort, and Carnival happens by negotiation.
So, and the reason for asking that question is that what you would hear, the complaints you would hear is that the police tell me to go so, the police tell me to turn off so, when I have come and agreed my point of entry and my point of exit and that kind of thing.
This is in relation to
Carnival bands, either coming in or leaving Carnival. At the designated
that's where it's
point.
About communication with our we've got plans and method in place for the band leaders, etc., to directly communicate with me. Ultimately, the police it's a huge organisation, and a lot of the police that you'll see in the front line are just doing their job, and they don't have any room for flexibility. So I think, you know, if people can communicate with me, you know, the leaders can communicate with me, and I can speak to more senior people. We can resolve things more easily. It's pointless having discussions or even arguments with people on the ground who are just doing what they think they've been told to do and what they think is right. And ultimately, everyone's aim is to keep people safe.
Okay, so irrespective to the given route of exit and entry, the police at the point of time when you interact with them could change that, depending on situation,
it's about
things happening.
So, for instance, if there's a delay in leaving the footprint, your perspective is you're stuck behind a barrier, but you may not be aware of something that's going on beyond or outside. That's why we have these communication channels internally with carnivalists. They can communicate to us, we can feed information to them, because your perspective is based on where you are. You won't have an idea why there's a delay in front of you.
Yeah.
But we do have communication methods to send that information both ways.
Who is Matthew? Who is Matthew? Who is Matthew? Matthew Phillip. Who is Matthew? Because you've come, you have obviously would have left a mark on this society in regards to being the CEO of Carnival. Where did it all start? Where it come from? Where the interest,
I wouldn't say that I would have left a mark. I've just contributed like tens of thousands of other people. You know, I think this event really celebrates inclusivity and immigration. I'm a product of that myself. My dad came over here from Trinidad. My mum came over here from Ireland. I was born in the UK, and you know, through my upbringing, my background, I was exposed to, you know, community, culture, and you know, it's very much part of me. And you know, I would just hope that I've contributed to it in some way, but it's not. I don't say that I would have left a mark.
You don't think you left a mark?
Any mark is, you know.
Anyone who changes the face of Carnival would have left a mark. Leslie Palmer did left a mark. Claire Holder did left a mark. You know, as we go along, everybody made something,
you
changed
called
something.
Some big names. I don't think I'm there yet.
You don't think you're there yet. I ask you what is your vision, and you say it's not you. It's the whole body that runs Carnival.
Body and the carnivalists themselves.
And
so
the
carnivalists.
carnivalists.
People often ask me, you know, why Carnival doesn't have an artistic director. It does. It has well over 100. Every mass band leader,
every
sound
pan
system
player,
operator, you know, have their own autonomy to curate and change and decide what they're representing, whether it's their costumes, their tunes of choice. And I firmly believe that that's why Carnival has remained relevant, because it's not one or two people deciding on content and what people are going to like. It's a collective, and those band leaders and sounds, and they're all communities in themselves that change and evolve over time, which is why we get a natural change. I don't think any two carnivals since it started have ever been exactly the same, and it's because of that input from so many different people. You know, it's taken a contribution of many people over many years.
What we as carnivalists could do to help this carnival. Carnival happens every bank holiday in August here in the UK. What it is, I would think that the organizers want from us as carnivalists, both players, band owners, and also spectators. What can we do to help?
Just contribute in any way you can, and work together. You know, we have to. I think as when it comes to Notting Hill Carnival, we've got to kind of take off our individual band or sectors thing and actually think about the event as a whole, because nothing is more. When it comes to Notting Hill Carnival, nothing is more powerful than that collective. You know, there isn't. For instance, there isn't a steel band, a mass band, or a sound system that could do an event that would bring so many people.
No, certainly not.
It's that collective, you know what I mean? It's that
It comes together,
coming togetherness, and we need to kind of think of ways to take that to another level in planning, and just better understanding of each other and each other's needs.
Well, that seems like there's a lot of work there. Matthew, finally, what would be the message you would want to send out, both for the people who continue to support Carnival, both the naysayers, you know, because the supporters of Carnival will continue to fight for Carnival to be where it is and to continuously take in place. What about, and then we have the ones who held bent on saying Carnival should not be where it is. What is your last message to both?
Carnival belongs on the streets, you know, and I don't think it's ever not going to be on the streets. But at the same time, we all have a duty of care to make sure that it happens safely.
Yeah.
You know, and part of that is us all acting responsibly. You know, Carnival's here to stay. You know, it belongs on the streets. It's not an event for a park or anything like that. It belongs on the streets of Notting Hill. Carnival started in the Caribbean post-emancipation, and it was a statement going onto the streets that people had previously not been allowed to go onto. And I think there's something similar to that when it comes to Notting Hill. Our community taking to the streets, showcasing the culture, but also it's one of the most inclusive and welcoming events that I've ever seen. Everybody is welcome. Yes, we're pushing on Black and Caribbean culture, but it's welcoming, and you see people from all walks of life. You've only got to walk through Carnival and you see people from different socio-economic backgrounds, races,
certainly.
religions, essentially at ease with each other, and that's a very rare sight. And I think it being a free event is an important factor in that as well.
Your baby, Panorama, and there's a reason why I call it your baby, because I see how you operate at Panorama. Is it going to move on into a bigger venue? Because now I think the capacity, the numbers, the interest has grown, and you have got the support. Are you considering, it's time for us to go Wembley?
It's very difficult to kind of, for me, it's very difficult to see that event anywhere else apart from in the heart of Notting Hill. Unfortunately, we've got two less bands this year. So, when we get to the stage where we've got like 10 or so bands entering, we'll have to look at alternatives. But at the moment, I think it's good that it stays where it is. We've got 5 bands this year, and it will continue to be in Horniman's for now. I think until we can get more participation, it will stay at Horniman's.
Matthew, let me take this time to say thank you for what you continue to do. I know it's not an easy road to walk because you're dealing with human beings, different personalities. To you and the committee that continue to work tirelessly to put on Carnival on behalf of the spectators and some of the band leaders who probably wouldn't have the opportunity to sit and talk with you, I want to say thank you very much. On behalf of the naysayers, I will say thank you still, because it gives us something to do. Thank you very much.
All right,
appreciate it.